Zohran Mamdani is the person I am finding hope in right now. I know that he's only running for mayor of New York City and not for a national office, but he is doing it in such a way that reminds me of Obama. He is basically running against the Democratic establishment. They still have not endorsed him from the highest levels, but that doesn't seem to matter because his message is getting through no matter what. And it's because he's so quick and smart and has these one-liners that get under your skin. Most of it right now is aimed at Andrew Cuomo, and it's amazing. He just said that he's spending more money to defeat him in the mayor's race than he would even tax him if he won. His policies are just common sense, and that is connecting with New York voters right now. This is the type of person that we need to see in the Democratic Party in order to defeat what is going on right now.
The new mayor of New York City is being associated to Hope. And by this I mean, he is the new generation of leaders that people are looking towards because of his charismatic, his ideas, his ideologies, despite the fact that people have been calling him out for being a socialist and a Democrat at the same time. But this guy has been compared to Obama. His win actually brought a lot of nostalgic effect on Obama's win, especially from the millennials who are young when Obama came into office. And today I have gathered a number of videos that I would like us to watch together and give us your insight. Tell us, does Zohran Mamdani relate to Obama, despite the fact that they are both have origins in East Africa, that is Kenya, and Zohran Mamdani, who is from Uganda. Also, they are from groups that are from minorities, and they are the first times. They are the first timers for those positions. For Zohran Mamdani, he's the first Muslim to be a mayor and also first socialist and all that. And also for Obama, he was the very first Black American to hold the position of presidency. And a lot of people are showing that there is hope. There is hope in the leadership of America, considering if there will be more rise of people like Zohran Mamdani. People who are not even from New York are believing in his politics, his ideas, and his way of doing things. His background as a musician even makes him more interesting a rapper. And actually, he has some music online, so you can go check them out. He has collaborated with artists from Uganda. He's just an interesting guy. I'm from Africa, to be specific. I'm from Kenya, and I'm excited in Zohran Mamdani's leadership. We wish him all the best. But before we continue, let's check these videos out and we'll come back with more commentary.
I'm not sure I can fully express how excited I am about Zohran Mamdani winning the New York mayoral election. And I don't live in New York. I'm never planning to live in New York. But this, in perhaps the most famous city in the world, certainly one of the most influential and powerful cities in the world, shows that when somebody stands up for the rights of ordinary working class people, not for the rich, not for the powerful, but for the 99%, with real policies that make sense to make our lives better, people turn out in droves. When somebody stands up with a great campaign, with a laser focus on the things that actually matter to ordinary people, and mobilizes the masses at the grassroots, door to door, face to face, heart to heart, with sincerity and passion and intelligence and insight and awareness and courage as well, withstanding every line of attack from all of the anti-Muslim hatred and the fear-mongering, from all of the anti-communist propaganda, when these are very moderate policies that would have been totally middle of the road or even centre-right in decades gone by. The majority of voters have ignored both major parties. They have ignored all of the major news and media organizations who have tried to fearmonger and scare people away from supporting this guy. This is a triumph of ordinary people coming together in their common interests. And I think it shows that we don't need parties. We don't need these media moguls telling us how to think and how to vote. We can figure it out for ourselves when somebody actually stands up for us. And I hope this inspires a huge wave of like-minded people around the world standing up for what's right for 99% of people. I want to see 1,000 more Zohrans around the world arising naturally in their communities and gaining the trust and support at the grassroots, and to see how we can make life better for each other. This world is incredibly wealthy and our economies are incredibly productive, and human beings are not inherently selfish or inherently competitive. We are cooperative beings, we're community minded, and we can look after each other.
I'm feeling something weird. I haven't felt this in a really long time. I think it might be hope. Yeah, it definitely is. Because Zohran Mamdani just showed us that even if billionaire interests rally against you and do everything in their power to stop progressive policies from being enacted and getting into the halls of power, you can defeat them. The people can defeat them. And shockingly, it turns out that the Substack pundits who have been relentlessly telling leftists that they have to pivot to the center to be taken seriously or win an election are full of shit. Because Zohran did something that progressive politicians largely have been failing to do. He not only correctly diagnosed the problem that we're dealing with right now, which is oligarchy and the rampant rise of wealth inequality, but he offered real solutions that actually help working class people, like universal childcare, fast and free buses, and a public option for groceries. Democratic socialist policies work. And the reason why the right wing is gaining so much attention in recent years is because they accurately point out the issues with affordability and young people not being able to afford homes, while liberal politicians say things like, oh, it's just a vibe session, our overall economic indicators are good, despite the fact that those economic indicators are skewed because they're a macro picture. They aren't showing the individual struggles that are exacerbated by the worst income inequality we've seen in decades. And because right-wingers are at least acknowledging these concerns instead of pretending that they don't exist, they are winning more votes, even though the solutions they're offering, like trickle-down economics, are snake oil. Zohran is showing the way forward. The battle against Mamdani, because of what he represents, won't end with this election. The billionaire-aligned voices will stop at nothing to discredit his ideas and to show that they don't work. Every single mistake he makes will be amplified. This is a model that the right wing has learned and honed to perfection. It actually all started with Gamergate. Basically, if you don't like someone, you can watch them like a hawk, and when they eventually make a mistake, because to err is human, they will explode over that mistake, even if they don't actually care about it, because what they do care about is discrediting you, and they know that the media will take that loud uproar and feel the need to both sides it, even if it's bad faith. These bad actors will try to make any mistakes that Zohran makes or anything that doesn't quite work with his policies define him. That does not mean that you shouldn't criticize him, but do not help those bad faith campaigns by amplifying when he is held to an unjust standard, which he will be. Be vigilant, be critical, and don't expect inhuman victories, immediate change, or an impossible level of perfection. There is no greater proof of the fact that someone like Zohran actually represents a real threat to the wealth-hoarding billionaires than the way that they desperately tried to stop him. And now they want to stop the momentum behind any and all future Zohran Mamdanis. Don't let them. And in the meantime, let's enjoy this. What do you think of all this?
I don't even live in New York City, but Zohran Mamdani getting elected has given me a glimmer of hope that I haven't felt since the year of 2016. So in 2016, I was 18 going on 19 years old. It was my first time ever voting, okay? And Bernie Sanders was on the ballot for the primary. And the first time I ever got to vote, I got to vote for Bernie Sanders, and he won. He won the Indiana primary in 2016, which Indiana is a red state, historically conservative and red. So the fact that a progressive like Bernie was able to win the state, it was just incredible to me. And I was like, wow, maybe people are finally waking up to class consciousness and we're ready to tackle these corporations and make the working class better and all of this stuff. And then Bernie didn't get the nomination. And then Trump won. And it's just been crazy shit for the past 10 years. And it has really just soured me. And I'm sure the same thing has happened to millions of other people. But I don't know why, but Mamdani getting elected, it's given me that little glimmer of hope again. Because this is a man who is standing up to billionaires and rich people and saying, you need to pay your fair share for the working class, for the people who are propping you up, the working people. And the fact that so many people were able to wake up to this and say, yes, we do have class consciousness now. It's not immigrants and whoever else making my life miserable. It's rich people. And that is like reawakening
this 2016 hope that I have. I'm really excited to see how this plays out for New York City. I'm rooting for you. And I really hope other cities follow suit. I hope more people like this are going to be running in cities, and not just for mayoral positions, for other ones as well. But it's making me hope that people are gaining this class consciousness, that it's not right versus left, it's up versus down. Even if I would consider myself a leftist, and if you don't have to agree with everything I think, that doesn't matter to me. But something I need you to agree with me on is that your life is terrible because of corporations and billionaires. And cost of living is too high. You can agree with me on that we don't get paid enough and cost of living is too high. Wages have been stagnant for decades while inflation has been skyrocketing. That is something you and I, regardless of anything else, can agree on. And I really hope this continues to happen, because it's truly a wonderful thing to make this realization, right? So yeah, congrats to New York City. I'm cheering you on. I hope this sparks a bit of a movement everywhere else.
Reading Zohran Mamdani's Wikipedia page bio is like doing a deep dive into the decline and fall of the British Empire and post-colonial Indian Africa. Let me tell you why. So I was reading about Mamdani's win for the New York City mayor, and I saw for the first time someone include his middle name, which is Kwame. And I went, oh, Kwame, as in Kwame Nkrumah. And so I did a little bit of digging, and yes, in fact, he was named after the first president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, who kind of led this non-violent resistance to allow Ghana its independence. They were the first African country to win its independence, kind of post this colonial era, post World War II. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, his parents must be very interesting. And they are, in fact, quite legit. So his parents are both Indian, right? But he was born in Uganda, and that might confuse a lot of people unless you know a little bit about 20th century world history, which includes a thing called the Indian diaspora. So in kind of the late 19th and then early to mid 20th century, the people of India, which I'm talking about kind of the subcontinent of India, British India, which includes today Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, and India, a lot of them moved all around the world to assume kind of jobs and positions and find opportunities across the British Empire, especially in Africa. Now, unfortunately, this is partly because the British preferred Indian kind of mid workers to Black African workers, right? But we see this also with like Gandhi, right? I mean, Gandhi spent 20 years as a lawyer in South Africa. We can also see it with like Freddie Mercury, who I think was born or at least was raised in Zanzibar. But anyway, his dad was a professor of post-colonialism and African studies, which would be really fascinating from his specific point of view. And I found that really interesting because Zohran Mamdani, when he went to college, he studied Africana studies. And I thought, at first I was like, well, why was that? And then knowing about his dad, it makes a lot of sense. But his mom is also incredibly legit. She's a filmmaker who made like a really big famous film in India about like street children, basically children who are, you know, born and raised and live and work on the streets of India. And with the proceeds of that film, her mother, Zohran Mamdani's grandmother, has run this massive NGO, this kind of trust bank that provides a ton of resources for working children and street children across India. So like what I'm trying to say is that Zohran Mamdani is like a third generation social activist who is like constantly on the lookout for the marginalized, the needy, and figuring out how he and like the government and the institutions around him can support the people who need the most support. Like
This was the cover of the New York Post this morning, and it was everything I knew it would be. Now, there was a very big part of me that wanted to make this video today purely celebratory. But I know there are a lot of New Yorkers that did not vote for Zohran Mamdani and woke up to that cover and feel genuinely afraid. I pride myself on being a real New Yorker. And one of the things about being a real New Yorker is being there for your own. And instead of celebrating today, I am hoping to ease your fears with a little history lesson instead. Every real New Yorker recognizes one particular name that is synonymous with greatness in this city. And that is Fiorello LaGuardia. Hailed as New York City's greatest mayor of all time. He too had a funny name that people could not pronounce. He too was looked at as not a typical politician at the time, as he had immigrant history and being a Jewish Italian American. Oh, the fear-mongering was real. And even though LaGuardia was a Republican, he was attacked relentlessly by his own party because he was a progressive Republican. I tell you guys to learn from history because it always repeats itself. And one of the things that always is rinsed, recycled, and repeated is the fear-mongering. Do you think "Eat the Rich" is a new slogan? It's just a new version. It's just a new version of something LaGuardia himself would say, and that was "soak the rich." He pushed for steeply progressive income taxes, saying, "I do not want to destroy wealth, but I do want to abolish poverty." LaGuardia's acute personal sense of the moral injustice of poverty and his ability to link the problems of cities to the largest issues of national concern set him apart from the New York City mayors that preceded him. And of course, the fear-mongering was the same. His opponents in the city's Republican and business circles routinely labeled him a red, Bolshevik, communist, or dictator for using public funds to create jobs and improve housing. Newspapers like the New York Sun and Herald Tribune mocked him as a little Mussolini and claimed he was turning New York City into a socialist experiment. But I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't give you the whole history. The world may never know if Fiorello LaGuardia would have been as successful had he not had the privilege and luck of being New York City's mayor under FDR. FDR, who brought his own progressive and socialist policies to a federal level. For it was the Revenue Act of 1935 that raised federal income tax on higher income levels by introducing the wealth tax, a progressive tax that took up to 75% of the highest incomes. It was signed into law by President Franklin Roosevelt over strong opposition from, you guessed it, business, the rich, and conservatives from both parties. Rinse, recycle, repeat. The 1935 Act also was popularly known at the time as "soak the rich." To solve the problem of tax evasion through loopholes, the Revenue Act of 1937 revised tax laws and regulations to increase the efficiency of tax. Now, unfortunately, Zohran Mamdani does not have the privilege of having an FDR as president right now. He has Donald Trump that continues to slash the taxes for the rich at a rate we haven't seen since Ronald Reagan. And then you wonder why the middle class has disappeared. So I guess I'm asking my fellow New Yorkers, instead of fighting against Zohran Mamdani, learn from New York's history. Learn that if we work together, we can accomplish a city that works for everybody, not just a few. Demand these kinds of changes from your politicians on federal levels and local levels. Now, Zohran Mamdani may not be able to accomplish these things with the hurdles that are against him. But what his win has shown us is that the people are fed up. So I urge you all to learn from history and get on board. These attacks, these tactics have been used for a really, really long time. But we show historically that if we ignore them, and align ourselves with people who are fighting for the 99%, we will be successful. And I know in my heart that I will genuinely be looking forward to one day calling a bridge the Mamdani Crossing. Also, quick note, congratulations to New Jersey, Virginia, Georgia, Pennsylvania. Historic night for a lot of us. And I hope the momentum continues. Okay, now I'm off to celebrate.
Where the hell did this guy come from? So I wanted to find out like what kind of put him on the map politically. As it turned, no, it had nothing to do with Muslims. No, it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with taxi drivers. So the city makes money by selling what are called medallions. And they're a physical medallion that goes on the car that gives them the right to operate a yellow cab. They kind of act like, almost like, if you think of like a liquor license, where it's not like an annual licensing fee, it's an asset. Like you buy it and it's an asset. And you can, when you retire, for example, you could sell that medallion. Okay, so if I were to ask you, for a single cab driver, how much do you think they would pay for a medallion? What would you guess? Okay, yeah, I think that's a good guess. What would you guess?
Did she say
She said 5,000.
No, I would say like 100,000.
They were almost $100,000 by the 1980s and 1990s. These drivers would have to go get loans to buy these medallions because it's required for their business, right? In like the 2000s, New York City limited how many of those medallions they would put out. And so when they limited it, what happens to the price of medallions? They skyrocket. By 2013, they're selling for over $1 million. Over $1 million. It's being driven in part by the city itself because they're holding auctions and setting minimum bids. Then you've got the lenders who are just trying to get in on this big lending action, the exact same fury that happened over the 2008 housing crisis, where they were lending money to people that couldn't afford it. Let me tell you something, if you drive a taxi, you can't afford $1 million loan. What's happening is these lenders, and we're talking like Capital One and Melrose Bank, they were offering these crazy terms to get these people locked into these loans that they absolutely could not afford. And they're inflating the values to be able to give these people loans. So once they get into these loans, they then can't even afford to eat. And then along comes Uber that is not required to have medallions. And so what happens to the value of a medallion? Almost overnight, it goes from being worth $1 million to being worth 600,000 to being worth 200,000. And by 2019, they did an auction of 16 of those medallions. 3 of them sold for about $137,000, and 13 of them didn't even get a bid. Now these people not only are in massive debt, but they're in massive debt over an asset that has no value.
Oh.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so what happens? They start foreclosing left and right. Well, if they foreclose, you're out of business. Like you've lost your career. And you could have your house tied up to it. You could have tied up to these loans. So it may not just be losing your cab. You could lose your home. And the cab unions are saying, look, this is ridiculous because the lenders and the city are engaging in predatory behavior. They're the ones who artificially inflated the value of those medallions, first by restricting them. So, Mom, there's 50,000 drivers in New York City, cab drivers, and there's like 13,000 medallions allowed. The city is taking no action. The drivers are asking the city to do something to protect them, like cap the amount of a medallion, cap the amount that a lender can put there, cap the amount of interest rates. At this point, help bail them out because the city is part of the reason they're in this situation. I mean, that's ludicrous. $1 million so somebody can have a job as a frickin' cab driver? Come on. It got so bad that in 2021, the cab drivers staged a hunger strike. They are desperate after 10 years of fighting the city to do something to stop it. But the city liked the inflated values too because the city has tons of these medallions that they still own and control. So it behooves them for their books to have the highest valuation. Even though it was hurting the people, it was helping the city. So the city didn't care. So these drivers stage a hunger strike. And the point of their hunger strike is, look, we cannot even afford groceries. That's how bad this medallion situation has gotten. At that time, in 2021, Mamdani was a 29-year-old assemblyman. So he was part of the legislature, but he couldn't get them to do anything either. So he actually went out on the steps of the Capitol and engaged in the hunger strike himself. And he did not eat anything for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And 2 weeks later, the city did something about it. They capped the amount of a license at $170,000, restructured the loans that these cab drivers had, some of them in the, many, many hundreds of thousands. The city gave grants up to $30,000 to help some of these drivers. They capped the payments at $1,100 a month. So they actually, at the end of that 2 weeks, they took action. And so he basically is credited by the cab drivers with saving their livelihood.
You have heard it for yourself. Yes, there are people who have loved Mamdani despite the fact that they're not from New York. And as a Gen Z, I really push the people of my generation or even the younger millennials to go for this position so that we can have a say in the leadership in our governments and even in the world politics. My name is Njoroge. I'm going to take you through this journey. As we have seen, those are positive vibes and positive people who have found hope in Zohran Mamdani. But there are people who discredit his leadership. Check these videos out.
Congratulations, New York City. You just elected a 34-year-old TikTok DJ that wants free everything and responsibility for nothing. Zohran Mamdani is, well, your new mayor. Created crime control, business growth, and common sense for, well, rent freezes. And here's the best part. He's never been in charge of a city block before, and now he is in charge of the financial capital of the United States. You asked for progress, and what you're going to get is a mass exodus. Businesses gone, jobs gone, tourists avoiding New York City like the plague. The rich, they'll pack up and move to Florida, while the rest of you foot the bill for the woke dreams that end in disaster every single time. Let's be clear, this is not historic. This is absolutely hysterical. You put a radical activist in charge during an insane housing crisis, during New York City's worst crime problem. Why? Because he had a viral video with AOC's approval. Get what you vote for in New York City. You know what you just voted for? Financial, cultural, and security collapse. Well, on a silver platter just for you. Mark my words, the Trump administration, they will have to step in. Because I assure you, this is not going to be live and let live politics. This is about the survival of a city that fuels the American economy. New York City, you better pray your next headline isn't Chapter 11.
Y'all really don't know how bad you just effed up. This just came on my phone. And to be honest, I knew he was going to win, but I just was hoping deep down that liberals would come to their senses for once in their life and not vote for Zohran Mamdani. You really just don't know what you did. You really don't. You guys think that he is going to just make everything free, 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 free. It doesn't work. It's never worked. It's not going to work. And you literally just got bought out by this liar. Yeah. Do you guys not see what's happening in Michigan already? You can practice whatever religion you want, but do not expect every single person around you to practice that same religion. And when you have prayer calls happening in Michigan, that is what they are trying to do. And what do you think is going to happen to New York? This is not good, and it just shows that liberals want to bring chaos and division and violence to the United States. You guys have become so anti-American because of your Trump derangement syndrome, and you blame Donald Trump for every single thing, when in reality, you should all take a look in the...
I've had it. Not everyone likes Zohran Mamdani. Not to be racist or not because of his origin, but amidst the ICE agents coming for immigrants, New York will be led by an immigrant. Same case, an immigrant gave birth to Obama. So New York will be led by a Ugandan, and it is interesting to see that the world politics are taking shape here, and we could see celebrations even in Uganda, who are so happy to have one of their persons or one of them represent them in America. There is hope in the world because the voters were not looking at the origin of the person or the race or the religion, but they were looking at the ideas, the kind of leadership Zohran Mamdani is going to bring. We are wishing him the very best, especially from Africa, because he represents us in a big way, and I'm really glad and looking forward to his term. I want to leave it there, and I'm sure I'll catch you up on the next episode. My name is Dennis Njoroge. Make sure to comment. Tell me, what do you think? What do you think? Is Zohran Mamdani giving you hope, or Zohran Mamdani is making you feel like you are already lost as an American? Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe, share with your friends who might be interested in this topic, and also feel free to like and make sure this video is being recommended to more people. Thank you so much. See you on the next episode.